stop what you're doing, because BTS just dropped a video of 7 grown men in expensive tailored suits performing at an indoor swimming pool. One of them is sitting in a lifeguard chair. 2 of them are wearing rubber duck floaties. One is handing out life vests to actual strangers. And somehow, in the middle of all of that beautiful chaos, one person still managed to make the entire internet stop scrolling and just stare. No dramatic prop, no over-the-top moment, just a treadmill, a suit, and ParkJimin being exactly who he has always been. And that, right there, is exactly what we need to talk about today. On March 31st, 2026, BTS uploaded Swim Live Clip 2, the swimming pool version. And if you haven't watched it yet, I need you to go watch it after this video, because it is genuinely one of the most unhinged and somehow also most charming things they have ever released. The setup is simple. BTS takes their Billboard Hot 100 #1 single, the title track off their comeback album Irreplaceable, and performs it inside an indoor swimming pool facility while wearing perfectly tailored dark suits. There is no grand stage. There are no pyrotechnics. There is number 50-person crew choreographing their every move. Just a pool, 7 men who haven't been on screen together for 4 years, and a concept that someone in the big hit offices clearly had a lot of fun pitching. RM sings portions of a song from a lifeguard chair like the most overqualified pool attendant in human history. Jin and V strut around the pool deck with children's rubber duck floaties on their arms, completely unbothered, completely confident, completely aware that they look absolutely ridiculous and choosing to commit to it anyway. Suga distributes flotation devices to actual swimmers like it's a completely normal thing to do mid-performance. Jungkook, at some point, decides to sprinkle water from a small watering can onto RM, who is still sitting in his lifeguard chair, still singing. And at the very end, all 7 members run toward the pool as if they're about to jump in together, still in their suits. And then the video cuts before you ever actually see them hit the water. It is chaotic. It is playful. It is exactly the kind of content that makes you remember why you fell in love with BTS in the first place, before they were stadium sellouts and Billboard record breakers and Netflix documentary subjects, when they were just 7 guys who clearly genuinely liked each other and weren't afraid to look ridiculous together. And then there's Jimin. Jimin, in this video, walks on a treadmill. That's his moment. His solo bit in the rotating gallery of absurd set pieces that each member gets in this clip. He walks on a treadmill by the pool while singing, surrounded by his members. And the comment section of this video, a comment section that is also filled with praise for the suga and V harmonization, and amazement at Jungkook's vocals, and admiration for RM's lifeguard chair commitment. That comment section keeps coming back to one thing. Jimin walking on the treadmill is so swag and his voice is amazing. In dozens of languages, from fans in every corner of the world. How does that happen? How does the least visually dramatic moment in a video full of rubber ducks and lifeguard chairs and poolside fishing become the moment people remember? The answer to that question isn't simple and it isn't short, but it is important, because understanding why Jimin is irreplaceable isn't just about appreciating one person in one video. It's about understanding what separates someone who is talented from someone who is genuinely, fundamentally, undeniably one of a kind. Let's start with the obvious thing that isn't actually that obvious: stage presence. Everyone talks about stage presence like it's this mysterious quality that some people are born with and some people aren't. And while there is certainly a natural component to it, the kind of stage presence that Jimin has isn't something that just arrives fully formed. It is built. It is carved out of thousands of hours of repetition, of self-correction, of choosing the harder path when the easier one was right there. You don't develop the ability to make a treadmill seem the most talked about moment in a swimming pool performance video by accident. That is the result of years of showing up and caring more than anyone reasonably asked you to care. ARMY knows the stories. The late nights in the practice room long after everyone else had gone home. The repeated takes that everyone else thought were already perfect, but Jimin knew weren't right yet. The decision early in his solo career to pull a song from an album because he didn't feel it was ready. Not because the label asked him to, not because the song was bad, but because his own internal standard for himself demanded it. These are not the actions of someone who is coasting on natural ability. These are the actions of someone who has made a deliberate, sustained, lifelong commitment to being excellent at what he does. And what that commitment produces is exactly what you see in a video like Swim Live Clip 2. It produces a person whose presence is so thoroughly calibrated, so deeply intentional at every level, that even in the most casual, lowest stakes setting imaginable, something comes through the screen that you cannot look away from. It's not that he's trying harder than everyone else in the video. It's that every version of him, relaxed, playful, silly, serious, has been refined to the point where it communicates something real. Something that registers on a frequency that bypasses your rational brain and goes straight to whatever part of you just responds to authenticity. Now let's talk about what was happening around this video, because context matters enormously here. In the weeks leading up to the swimming pool clip, Jimin had already had one of the most eventful comeback runs of his entire career. On the March 20th comeback livestream, he casually revealed that he was currently at 59.7 kilograms, and that number represented a loss of somewhere between 9 and 10 kilograms. The entire fandom felt that, not just because of the number itself, but because of what it represented. Jimin preparing for this comeback with the same relentless standard he has always held himself to, even when 4 years away from the spotlight might have given him every excuse to ease up. He didn't ease up. He showed up to Era the way he shows up to everything, completely. Then on March 24th, a video dropped on the Hot Issue G YouTube channel of Jimin appearing as a ballroom dance instructor alongside comedian Lee Soo-ji. What should have been a simple, light-hearted guest appearance turned into one of the most viral moments of the entire comeback period, with fans flooding social media saying things like, "Who sent Jimin into this chaos? I'm crying," and "I can't believe this man just saved K-pop comedy." It wasn't Jimin trying to be funny. It was Jimin being fully present in a situation, responding to it genuinely, and letting his natural charisma do what it always does, fill the room. Then came the Spotify Swimside event in New York on March 23rd, an outdoor performance at Pier 17 in temperatures that had dropped into the low 40s Fahrenheit. After the show, Jimin posted on Weverse worrying about how cold the fans must have been waiting outside for them. Not, "Thank you for coming." Not a promotional message. He was worried about them. That's such a small detail. But it's also a perfect encapsulation of why the emotional connection between Jimin and ARMY exists on a level that goes far beyond normal fan-idol dynamics. And then, on March 31st, one day after Billboard confirmed that Swim had debuted at #1 on the Hot 100, making it BTS's 7th chart-topping single in the United States, BTS drops a video of themselves at a swimming pool in suits. And Jimin gets on a treadmill. And somehow, the story of the entire comeback finds a way to circle back to him, the way it always does. There is something that happens when a person has spent over a decade building trust with an audience. When every performance, every interview, every casual social media update, every off-script moment in a behind-the-scenes video has consistently communicated something real about who they are and what they care about, something accumulates. Call it credibility. Call it emotional equity. Call it a decade of showing up and never mailing it in. Whatever you call it, Jimin has it in a way that very few artists in the world have it, and it makes every single thing he does land differently than it would if a stranger did the exact same thing. The treadmill scene works because of everything that came before the treadmill scene. It works because of 2013 Jimin in the practice room. It works because of every album, every tour, every solo project, every moment he decided to hold himself to a standard that nobody externally enforced. It works because when ARMY looks at Jimin walking on a treadmill in a suit next to an indoor pool, they aren't just seeing a man on a treadmill. They're seeing 12+ years of a person who genuinely, authentically, relentlessly cared, and still cares, about every frame he occupies. That is what irreplaceable actually means. Not that everything would fall apart without him, but that with him, everything becomes something it couldn't be without him. He gives weight and warmth and depth to moments that would otherwise just be content. He turns a swimming pool performance clip into something people want to watch 3 times and screenshot and send to their friends and write paragraphs about in comment sections. And here's the thing that makes this particular era so significant for understanding Jimin specifically. Erarang is not just a comeback, it's a reckoning. It's 7 men who stepped away from the most successful run in K-pop history, spent 4 years apart, served their country, grew individually in ways that nobody could fully anticipate, and then came back together to make something new. The album is called Erarang, After a traditional Korean folk song that has represented endurance and reunion and the bittersweet ache of returning home for centuries. That is not an accident. That is a statement. And in that context, Jimin's journey into this era carries extra weight. His solo work during the hiatus, the album Muse in 2024, which peaked at number 2 on the Billboard 200, showed an artist who was expanding, deepening, exploring parts of himself that the group format didn't always have space for. He came back to BTS, not as the same person who left, but as a fuller, more rounded version of himself. And you can feel that in everything he does in this era. In the way he holds a note in the swimming pool clip. In the way he described his initial hesitation about Swim as a title track, concerned it was too calm, too understated for a comeback this size. And then his decision to fully commit to it anyway. In the way he carries himself in every piece of content, from the Netflix documentary to the Comedy Central chaos of the Lee Soo-ji video to the treadmill at the side of a pool. Jimin at 27, coming back from military service, stepping back into the most scrutinized spotlight in modern music, he is not trying to recapture something. He is building something new. And the fact that he can do that while still making a treadmill scene feel like the emotional centerpiece of a viral swimming pool video, that is extraordinary. That is the thing that no training program, no amount of industry strategy, no perfectly engineered promotional campaign can manufacture. That is just Jimin. Think about what it means to be truly irreplaceable in an industry that is designed to manufacture replaceability. K-pop as a genre has been built, in many ways, on the idea that talent can be trained, that charisma can be cultivated, that the right combination of visual appeal and vocal ability and work ethic can be systematically produced. And to a certain extent, that is true. The industry is extraordinarily good at what it does. But every now and then, someone comes through the system who cannot be fully explained by the system. Someone whose impact on the people watching them goes beyond what any amount of training or strategic positioning can account for. Jimin is that person. It is not just his technique, though his technique is exceptional. It is not just his visuals, though few people on earth command a camera the way he does. It is not just his voice, though the way his voice has matured into this era, deeper, warmer, more textured, is something that music journalists and ARMY alike have been talking about since Irreplaceable dropped. It is the sum of all of those things plus something else entirely. Something that exists in the space between what you can describe and what you can only feel when you watch him. ARMY felt it during the Gwangwamun concert on March 21st, when BTS took the stage together for the first time in nearly 4 years in front of 260,000 people, and the cameras found Jimin at exactly the right moment. They felt it during the Spotify Swimside performance in New York, standing in the cold, watching him on stage and knowing he was thinking about them even as he performed. They felt it in the Lee Soo-ji video, watching him get Princess carried by a comedian, and somehow managing to turn that into a moment of pure, unguarded charm. And they felt it in the swimming pool clip, watching him walk on a treadmill in a suit and somehow making that the most commented moment of the entire video. The through line in all of those moments is not that Jimin did something technically extraordinary. The through line is that Jimin was fully, completely, entirely present. And in an era where attention is fractured and authenticity is performed and everyone is trying to manufacture the kind of connection that Jimin seems to generate simply by existing in a space, that kind of presence is the rarest thing in the world. In a group of 7 people who are all extraordinary in their own right, Jimin occupies a space that could only ever belong to him. He is the emotional anchor, the moment maker, the person whose presence in any frame, no matter how small, no matter how casual, no matter how randomly staged, elevates everything around it. He has been doing this for over a decade. And in the Irreplaceable era, with everything he has grown through and grown into during those 4 years away, he is doing it at a level that feels like the fullest, most realized version of who ParkJimin was always becoming. Irreplaceable debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 with 641,000 equivalent album units in its first week. Swim held the number 1 spot on Spotify's Daily Top Songs Global for 8 consecutive days. The Irreplaceable World Tour begins April 9th in Goyang, South Korea, and will take BTS to 34 cities across 23 countries, including stops in Southeast Asia, through March 2027. The scale of this comeback is historic by any measure. But in the middle of all of that history, In the middle of all those record-breaking numbers and sold-out stadiums and Netflix deals and world tours, BTS released a video of themselves at a pool. And Jimin walked on a treadmill. And it was somehow everything. Because that is what happens when someone has spent their entire career earning the right to be irreplaceable. Even the smallest moments become unforgettable. If this video made you feel something, if it reminded you exactly why you've been an ARMY this whole time, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop in the comments, what was your favorite Jimin moment from the entire Arirang comeback so far? I read every single one. I'll see you in the next video. Keep swimming, ARMY.